Danny Martinez hit the ground hard for the third time that morning. His knees scraped against the metal floor of the training room as the other soldiers laughed. He was small and thin, barely reaching the shoulders of his squad mates. While they lifted heavy weights and ran fast, Danny struggled to keep up. "Get up, Martinez," squad leader Jake Thompson shouted. "You're making us all look bad." Danny pushed himself up slowly. His arms shook from the effort. The other soldiers in Alpha Squadron watched him with disgusted looks. Ryan Burke shook his head and turned away. Lisa Adams rolled her eyes and whispered something to the soldier next to her. They all thought Danny was useless. "I don't know why they even let you join the army," Jake said loud enough for everyone to hear. "You can't fight. You can't run. You can't do anything right." Danny said nothing. He had learned long ago that talking back only made things worse. He picked up his gear and followed the squad as they left the training room. Nobody waited for him. Nobody cared if he fell behind. The UES Titan was a massive spaceship that carried over 2,000 soldiers. Danny had been on the ship for 6 months, but he still felt like an outsider. The other soldiers talked and laughed together. They shared meals and told stories. Danny ate alone and slept in the corner of the barracks where nobody would bother him. That afternoon, the squad got new orders. They were going to land on a planet called Kepler 442b to check out some strange signals. Danny packed his gear and tried to stay out of everyone's way. He knew they wished he wasn't coming with them. The planet was cold and dark. Strange purple clouds covered the sky, and the ground was covered with black rocks. Danny's squad walked across the empty landscape toward an old mining site. Their boots crunched on the frozen ground as they moved. "Stay alert," Jake told the squad. "We don't know what's down here." Danny carried his weapon and tried to keep up. His legs were shorter than the others, so he had to take more steps. Soon he was breathing hard and falling behind. Ryan Burke looked back at him with anger. "Hurry up, Martinez," Ryan said. "We don't have all day." The mining site was old and broken down. Rusty machines sat in the dirt, and empty buildings stood like ghosts. But their scanners showed something was still active deep underground. Jake led them to a cave entrance that went down into the darkness. "The signals are coming from down there," said Lieutenant Amy Foster, their science officer. She was smart and good with computers. "Something big is moving around down there." They walked down into the cave with their lights on. The walls were smooth and black, like they had been melted by extreme heat. Strange symbols were carved into the stone. Danny ran his fingers over them as they passed. They felt warm to the touch. "Don't touch anything," Jake snapped at him. "We don't know what this stuff does." Deeper in the cave, they found something that made them all stop and stare. It was a ship, but not like any human ship they had ever seen. It was huge and curved, made of what looked like living metal. Green light pulsed through lines that ran along its surface like veins. "This is incredible," Amy whispered. She pulled out her scanner and started taking readings. "It's not human technology. It's definitely alien." The ship had a hole in its side big enough for them to walk through. Inside, everything was dark except for the green glow that came from the walls. The air smelled strange, like flowers mixed with metal. Their footsteps echoed in the empty halls. They found a large room filled with glass containers. Each container was as tall as a person and filled with green liquid. Something floated in each one, but it was hard to see what they were. "They look like pods," Amy said, studying them with her scanner. "There's something alive in each one." Danny walked closer to one of the pods. The thing inside looked like a jellyfish made of light. It had no solid form, just flowing energy that moved in. Patterns. As he watched, it seemed to sense him looking at it. The patterns changed, and it moved toward the glass. "Martinez, get away from there," Jake ordered. But Danny couldn't move. He felt drawn to the creature in the pod. It was beautiful and strange, unlike anything he had ever seen. The creature pressed against the glass, and Danny could swear it was trying to communicate with him. "These readings are off the charts," Amy said, her voice full of worry. "These things are not just alive. They're highly intelligent. And they're starting to wake up." Red lights began flashing throughout the ship. A loud sound filled the air, like a heartbeat that was getting faster. The green liquid in the pods began to bubble and move. "We need to get out of here," Ryan said, backing toward the exit. But it was too late. One of the pods near the back of the room cracked open with a loud pop. Green liquid spilled onto the floor, and the creature inside began to take shape. It looked like smoke at first, but then it became more solid. It had no fixed form, changing from one shape to another as it moved. "Run!" Jake shouted. The squad ran for the exit, but the creature was fast. It flowed through the air like water, moving between solid and liquid states. Danny was the last one in line, struggling to keep up with the others. He could hear the creature behind him, making sounds like wind through trees. They reached the cave entrance, but the creature followed them outside. It moved differently in the open air, more like a cloud than a solid thing. The squad spread out and raised their weapons, but their bullets passed right through it. "It's not solid," Amy called out. "Our weapons won't work." The creature circled them, studying each soldier. It moved close to Jake first, hovering around him like it was learning about him. Then it moved to Ryan, then to Lisa, then to the others. Each time, it would pause and seem to consider something before moving on. Finally, it came to Danny. He was crouched behind a rock, trying to make himself as small as possible. The creature approached him slowly, carefully. Unlike with the others, it didn't move away. Instead, it settled in front of him and began to change colors. Danny felt something touch his mind. It wasn't painful, but it was strange. Images flowed through his thoughts, pictures of distant stars and dying worlds. He saw great ships moving through space, and terrible battles between creatures he couldn't understand. The creature was trying to tell him something. It needed help, and somehow it thought Danny was the one who could provide it. Danny didn't understand why, but he felt a connection to this strange being that he had never felt with another living thing. As the images faded, Danny realized that his life was about to change forever. The creature had chosen him, and he had no idea what that meant. The creature stayed near Danny, while the other soldiers tried to figure out what to do. Jake kept his weapon pointed at it, even though the bullets had no effect. The rest of the squad formed a circle around Danny and the strange being. "Martinez, get away from that thing," Jake ordered. "We don't know what it wants," but Danny couldn't move. The creature's presence in his mind felt warm and safe, not dangerous. More images flowed through his thoughts. He saw a beautiful world with crystal, cities and beings made of light. Then he saw darkness coming from space, destroying everything in its path. "It's not trying to hurt me," Danny said quietly. "It's trying to talk to me." "Don't be stupid," Ryan said. "It's an alien. It could kill you." The creature pulsed with different colors as if it understood their words. It moved closer to Danny, and suddenly his mind was filled with clearer pictures. He saw the creature's people, the Nexari, as they called themselves. They lived in harmony with their world until the destroyers came. The destroyers were massive beings that ate entire planets. They moved from star to star, consuming everything in their path. The Nexari called them the Devourers. When the Devourers reached the Nexari homeworld, most of the population was killed. Only a few escaped in ships, like the one they had found. "There. Refugees," Danny said out loud. "Their world was destroyed." What are you talking about? Amy asked. She held her scanner pointed at the creature. How do you know that? It's showing me pictures in my mind, Danny explained. Its people were running from something worse. Something that eats planets. Jake lowered his weapon slightly. That's impossible. You can't talk to aliens. But Danny was receiving more information. The Nexari were not just refugees. They were looking for something specific. They needed to bond with other life forms to survive, but the bonding process was dangerous. Most beings died when a Nexari tried to merge with them. The creature showed Danny images of other worlds where they had tried to find hosts. On each planet, the Nexari had attempted to bond with the strongest, smartest, or most advanced beings. But every attempt had failed. The hosts couldn't handle the connection and died. They've been looking for someone compatible, Danny said, his voice filled with wonder. They tried bonding with the strongest fighters and the smartest scientists on dozens of worlds, but it never worked. Bonding? Lisa asked nervously. What kind of bonding? The creature sent Danny more images. The Nexari needed to share consciousness, with another being to unlock their full power. But the host had to have a very specific type of brain pattern. Most intelligent beings had minds that were too rigid or too complex for the connection to work. Danny saw himself through the creature's perception. His brain was different from the others. Where they saw weakness and slowness, the Nexari saw flexibility and openness. His neural pathways were arranged in a way that made bonding possible. It says I'm compatible, Danny said, hardly believing it himself. My brain is different. That's why I'm slow at learning some things. But it's also why I can connect with them. This is crazy, Ryan said. Martinez, you're talking nonsense. The creature moved even closer to Danny. He could feel its eagerness and hope. It had been searching for so long, and finally found someone who could survive the bonding process. But it wouldn't force him. The choice had to be his. Through the mental connection, the creature showed Danny what would happen if he accepted the bond. He would gain incredible abilities. His strength would increase far beyond human limits. His reflexes would become lightning fast. His mind would expand to understand technology that humans hadn't even dreamed of. But there was a cost. He would no longer be completely human. The Nexari would become part of him forever, sharing his thoughts and emotions. Some of his human weaknesses would disappear, but he might lose some of his humanity as well. Why me? Danny asked the creature in his mind. The answer came as a feeling rather than words. The Nexari had tested hundreds of warriors and geniuses across the galaxy. They all had minds that were too set in their ways, too proud or too rigid. Danny's mind was open and adaptable. His years of being ignored and pushed aside had made him humble and flexible. Most importantly, Danny genuinely cared about protecting others, even those who treated him badly. The Nexari could sense his pure desire to help people, even when those people didn't appreciate him. This compassion was essential for the bonding to work without corrupting either consciousness. There's something else, Danny said to his squad mates. The things that destroyed their world, the Devourers, they're coming here, to Earth. Amy's scanner beeped urgently. Danny, I'm picking up massive energy signatures moving through this solar system. Whatever you're seeing, I think it might be real. The creature showed Danny images of the approaching threat. Hundreds of biomechanical ships were moving through space toward human territory. They had already consumed 3 outer colonies. Earth would be next. How long do we have? Jake asked, his voice tense. Danny concentrated on the images flowing through his mind. Months, maybe less. They move fast once they start feeding. The squad members looked at each other with fear and doubt. This was beyond anything they had trained for. If Danny was right, humanity was facing extinction. What does the creature want from you? Amy asked. It wants to bond with me, Danny said. If we merge, I'll have the power to fight the Devourers. But I have to choose now. Once they get closer to Earth, it will be too late. Don't do it, Ryan said quickly. We don't know what will happen to you. It could kill you, Lisa added, or turn you into something else. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Martinez, I know I've been hard on you, but this decision affects all of humanity. Are you sure this thing is telling the truth? Danny looked at the creature floating in front of him. He could feel its emotions through their connection. It was desperate and afraid, but also hopeful. It had lost everything and everyone it cared about. All it wanted was a chance to prevent the same thing from happening to another species. It's telling the truth, Danny said. And it's not evil. It's just trying to survive, like we are. The creature pulsed with warm colors, showing Danny one final image. He saw himself standing on the deck of a human warship, directing the battle against the Devourers. His body moved with impossible speed and grace. Energy weapons that would kill a normal human bounced off his skin. He commanded both human and Nexari technology, using them together to create defenses the Devourers had never encountered. But the image also showed the sacrifice involved. Danny would become something new, neither fully human nor fully Nexari. He would be powerful enough to protect his species, but he would be forever changed. I have to do it, Danny said finally. If I don't, everyone dies. My friends, my family, everyone on Earth. We're not your friends, Ryan said bitterly. We've treated you like garbage. That doesn't matter, Danny replied. You're still human. You still deserve to live. The creature moved closer, waiting for his final decision. Danny could feel its readiness to begin the bonding process. All he had to do was say yes, and everything would change. He thought about his life on the ship, the loneliness, the mockery, the constant feeling of being worthless. Then he thought about Earth, about billions of people who had no idea what was coming for them. People who deserved a chance to live and grow and be happy. I accept, Danny. Said out loud, the creature's form brightened, and suddenly Danny felt it rushing toward him. But instead of hitting his body, it flowed into his mind like water. Pain exploded through his skull as alien consciousness merged with human thought. He screamed as his neurons rewired themselves to accommodate the Nexari presence. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was his squad mates, rushing toward him as he collapsed to the ground. Then everything went dark as two minds became one. Danny woke up 3 days later in the medical bay of the U-E's Titan. His head felt strange, like it was filled with cotton and electricity at the same time. When he tried to sit up, the room spun around him. Easy there, said Dr. Helen Park, the ship's doctor. You've been unconscious for a while. Your squad brought you back after you collapsed on the planet. Danny looked around the medical bay. Everything seemed brighter and more detailed than before. He could see tiny scratches on the metal walls that he had never noticed. He could hear conversations from other rooms that should have been too quiet to hear. How do you feel? Dr. Park asked, checking his vital signs. Different, Danny said honestly. Everything looks and sounds different. The doctor frowned at her readings. Your brain activity is unusual. There are patterns here I've never seen before. What happened down on that planet? Before Danny could answer, Jake Thompson walked into the medical bay. He looked uncomfortable and kept glancing around like he expected something bad to happen. Martinez, Jake said awkwardly. You feeling okay? I think so, Danny replied. He could sense something different about Jake's emotions. It was like he could feel the squad leader's worry and guilt without Jake saying anything. Good, Jake said, because we need to talk about what happened down there. The alien creature disappeared right after you collapsed. The whole ship went dark and stopped working. We had to carry you back to the shuttle. Danny nodded, But inside his mind, he could feel the Nexari presence. It wasn't controlling him or fighting him. Instead, it felt like having a helpful friend who shared his thoughts. The creature, who called itself Zephyr, was resting and recovering from the bonding process. "I'm fine," Danny said. "Just tired." Dr. Park looked at her scanner again. "Your physical readings are normal, but there's something else. Your muscle density has increased by 20%. Your bone structure is denser. And your neural activity is off the charts." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "I don't know," the doctor admitted. "I've never seen anything like it." Danny was released from the medical bay that afternoon. As he walked through the ship's corridors, he noticed that his body felt different. His muscles were stronger, his balance was better, and he could move more quietly than before. Other crew members watched him with curious looks, but nobody said anything. During dinner, Danny sat alone as usual. But now he could hear every conversation. In the cafeteria, he could smell individual ingredients in the food. His senses were enhanced far beyond normal human levels. Jake and the other squad members sat at their usual table. Danny could hear them talking about him, even though they were trying to be quiet. "He's different," Ryan was saying. "Did you see how he moved when he walked in here? Like he was floating." "The doc said his body has changed," Lisa added. "What if that alien thing did something to him? What if he's not even human anymore?" Someone else whispered. Danny felt hurt by their words, but Zephyr's presence in his mind was comforting. The Nexari showed him images of understanding and patience. It would take time for others to accept what had happened. That night, Danny lay in his bunk and communicated with Zephyr through thought. The Nexari shared more information about the approaching Devourers. They were closer than Danny had first thought, maybe only weeks away from reaching human space. The Devourers were not just destroyers. They were collectors. They consumed entire civilizations to add their knowledge and abilities to their own collective consciousness. Every species they ate made them stronger and smarter. "How do we fight them?" Danny asked in his mind. Zephyr showed him images of weapons and defenses that combined human technology with Nexari abilities. But creating these weapons would require Danny to reveal his transformation to the ship's commanders. And that would mean admitting that he was no longer completely human. The next morning, Danny's squad was called to the training room for combat exercises. Danny followed them, wondering how his new abilities would affect his performance. "Same drill as always," Jake announced. Hand-to-hand combat, then weapons training. Danny was paired with Ryan Burke for the first exercise. Ryan was twice his size and had always beaten Danny easily in past fights. But as soon as the match started, Danny realized everything had changed. Ryan threw a punch that would have knocked Danny down before. But now Danny could see the punch coming in slow motion. He moved his head slightly to the side, and Ryan's fist whistled past his ear. Danny's body responded with perfect balance and timing. "Lucky dodge," Ryan said, throwing. Another punch. This time Danny didn't just dodge. He moved faster than Ryan could follow, stepping inside his reach and tapping him gently on the chest. If it had been a real fight, Ryan would have been seriously injured. "What the hell?" Ryan said, staring at Danny in shock. The other squad members had stopped their own exercises to watch. Danny was moving like a completely different person. His old clumsiness was gone, replaced by fluid grace and perfect timing. "Martinez," Jake called out. "What's going on?" Danny tried to explain without revealing too much. "I feel better since we got back from the planet. More focused." "That's not just focused," Lisa said. "That's impossible." "You moved faster then." I could see. For the weapons training, Danny was given a standard energy rifle. In the past, he had been a terrible shot, missing targets that other soldiers hit easily. But now, with Zephyr's help, he could calculate wind speed, distance, and trajectory instantly. He raised the rifle and fired at the practice targets. Every shot hit the center perfectly. The computer announced a perfect score, something that had never happened before in the squad's history. "Run the test again," Jake ordered. His voice tense. Danny fired again, hitting each target in the exact center. The computer confirmed another perfect score. "This is impossible," Amy said. "Nobody shoots that well on their first try." "It's not." "My first try," Danny pointed out. "I've been practicing." "Practicing badly," Ryan said. "You couldn't hit a target if it was standing still 2 feet away." The squad members gathered around Danny, all of them looking confused and worried. They knew something had changed, but they couldn't understand what. "We need to report this to the captain," Jake said finally. "This isn't normal." Before Danny could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Emergency lights flashed red, and the captain's voice came over the intercom. "All hands to battle stations. We have multiple unidentified contacts approaching at high speed. This is not a drill." The squad ran to their positions, but Danny could feel Zephyr's alarm in his mind. The Nexari recognized the energy signatures that the ship's sensors were detecting. "They're here," Danny said quietly. "What?" Jake asked as they ran down the corridor. "The Devourers," Danny said. "They found us." Through the ship's viewports, they could see strange shapes moving against the stars. The Devourer ships looked like massive insects made of metal and flesh. They were bigger than any human warship, and there were dozens of them. "How is that possible?" Amy asked. "We're light years from any known alien territory." Danny felt Zephyr sharing knowledge through their bond. The Devourers had followed the Nexari ship's trail to this planet. They had found the crash site and learned that an Nexari had bonded with a human. "They're not here for the planet," Danny realized. "They're here for me." The first Devourer ship opened fire on the Titan. The energy beam punched through the ship's shields like they were made of paper. Explosions echoed through the corridors as the crew scrambled to respond. "All fighters launch immediately," the captain ordered over the intercom. "Prepare for close combat." Danny felt power flowing through his body as Zephyr prepared to help. Defend the ship. His transformation was complete, but now he would have to reveal it to save his crew mates. The weakest soldier was about to become humanity's greatest weapon. The Titan shook as more Devourer weapons hit the hull. Danny could feel the ship's pain through Zephyr's enhanced senses. The alien technology was tearing through human defenses like they were made of cardboard. "We need to get to the escape pods." Jake shouted over the sound of explosions. "No," Danny said firmly. "We need to fight." "Fight with what?" Ryan asked. "Our weapons can't even scratch those things." Danny ran toward the nearest computer terminal. When he placed his hands on the console, Zephyr's knowledge flowed through him into the ship's systems. Information scrolled across the screen faster than human eyes could follow, but Danny understood every bit of it. "What are you doing?" Amy asked, watching the screen in amazement. "Upgrading our weapons," Danny said. His fingers moved across the keyboard with impossible speed. "The ship's systems can be modified to use Nexari technology." "That's impossible," Jake said. "You don't know anything about advanced technology." But Danny was already changing the ship's weapon systems. Zephyr guided him through the process, showing him how to combine human engineering with Nexari energy. Manipulation. The ship's lasers began to pulse with a different kind of light. "Target the lead ship," Danny ordered. "Martinez, you're not in command here," Jake said. "I am now," Danny replied. There was something in his voice that made everyone stop arguing. "Trust me." The modified weapons fired at the nearest Devourer ship. Instead of bouncing off its armor, the energy beams cut deep into the alien vessel. The creature inside screamed in a voice that could be heard across space. "How did you do that?" Lisa asked in amazement. The Nexari fought these things before. Danny explained, still working at the console. They know their weaknesses. More Devourer ships moved closer to the Titan. But now the human ship was fighting back effectively. Danny guided the weapons from the computer terminal, hitting weak points that only Zephyr's memory could identify. "Sir," came a voice from the ship's intercom. "This is Captain Harrison. Who is controlling our weapons? They're operating beyond normal parameters." Jake looked at Danny with new understanding. "You need to talk to the captain. Tell him what happened." Danny nodded and activated the ship's communication system. "Captain, this is Private Martinez. I need to speak with you immediately." "Martinez?" The captain's voice sounded confused. "What's your status?" "I'm the one controlling the weapons, sir. I have information about the enemy that you need to hear." There was a long pause. Then the captain's voice came back, tight with tension. "Report to the bridge immediately. And bring your squad leader." Danny and Jake ran through the ship's corridors while explosions continued around them. When they reached the bridge, they found Captain Harrison and Major Patricia Wells studying the tactical displays. "Private Martinez," the captain said, turning to face them. "Explain how you're able to control our weapon systems." Danny took a deep breath. "Sir, I need to tell you about what happened on the planet. The alien creature that we found, it bonded with me." "Bonded?" Major Wells asked sharply. "What do you mean?" "It's inside my mind, sharing its knowledge," Danny explained. "Its species, the Nexari, they were refugees running from these devourers. The creature chose me because my brain was compatible with theirs." Captain Harrison stared at him for a long moment. "You're saying you're not fully human anymore?" "I'm still me," Danny said. "But I have access to Nexari technology and knowledge. That's how I was able to upgrade our weapons." "This is insane," Major Wells said. "We should put him in containment. He could be compromised." "Ma'am," Danny said respectfully, "with respect, you need me. These devourers have destroyed hundreds of civilizations. They're not going to stop with this ship. They're going to Earth." Another explosion rocked the ship, stronger than before. On the tactical display, they could see more devourer ships arriving. "How many more are coming?" Captain Harrison asked. Danny closed his eyes and let Zephyr share its knowledge. Images flowed through his mind, showing him the full scope of the devourer fleet. "Hundreds," he said quietly. "Maybe thousands. This is just the advance guard." "My God," Major Wells whispered. "There's more," Danny continued. "They're not just here to destroy us. They want to capture me. The Nexari-human bond is something they've never encountered before. They want to study it." "Why?" the captain asked. "Because it might be the key to defeating them," Danny said. "The Nexari tried to fight the Devourers alone and failed. But a human-Nexari hybrid has capabilities that neither species has by itself." Through the ship's sensors, Danny could feel the Devourers trying to break through the Titan's defenses. They were being more careful now, avoiding the ship's upgraded weapons. "They're adapting," Danny said. "They learn from every attack. Then we need to hit them with something they can't adapt to," Captain Harrison said. "What do you recommend?" Danny felt Zephyr sharing tactical information. The Nexari had learned much about Devourer weaknesses during their long war. "Their ships are living creatures," Danny explained. "They can heal damage and adapt to weapons. But they have a weakness. They're controlled by a hive mind. If we can disrupt their communications, they'll become confused and vulnerable." "How do we do that?" Jake asked. Danny looked at the ship's systems through Zephyr's enhanced perception. "I need to connect directly to the ship's main computer. But it's dangerous. If I link too deeply with the ship's systems, I might not be able to disconnect." "What would happen to you?" Major Wells asked. "I don't know," Danny admitted. "I might lose my human consciousness. or the connection might kill me. Captain Harrison studied the tactical display. More Devourer ships were arriving every minute. Soon they would be completely overwhelmed. "Do it," the captain ordered. "We don't have a choice." Danny walked to the main computer console. When he placed his hands on the interface, he felt Zephyr preparing for the deep connection. The Nexari was afraid, but also determined. "Danny," Jake said quietly, "I owe you an apology. I treated you badly because I thought you were weak. I was wrong." "You weren't wrong," Danny said. "I was weak. But that weakness is what made the bonding possible." He pressed his palms against the computer interface and felt his consciousness expanding into the ship's systems. Through the Titans' sensors, he could perceive the entire battle. He could feel the Devourer ships moving through space like predators circling their prey. Danny began to understand the Devourer communication network. It was like a vast web connecting all their ships and creatures. He could see the information flowing between them, coordinating their attacks. With Zephyr's help, he found the frequency they used to communicate. It was unlike anything humans had ever detected, operating on quantum levels that human technology couldn't normally access. "I've got it," Danny said, his voice echoing strangely through the ship's speakers. "Prepare for quantum disruption pulse." "What's that going to do?" Captain Harrison asked. "It's going to give them the worst headache of their lives," Danny replied. He channeled all of the ship's power through the modified weapon systems. But instead of firing at the Devourer ships, he broadcast the energy as a communication signal. The pulse spread out in all directions, carrying a message designed to overload the Devourer hive mind. The effect was immediate. The Devourer ships stopped moving in formation. They began to drift aimlessly, no longer coordinated. Some even began attacking each other, confused by the disrupted signals. "It worked," Major Wells said in amazement. "They're completely disorganized." "It won't last long," Danny warned. "They'll adapt to the disruption. We need to attack now while they're vulnerable." The Titan's weapons, still enhanced by Nexari technology, began destroying the confused Devourer ships. But Danny could feel the strain of maintaining the connection. His human consciousness was being stretched across the ship's entire computer network. "Danny, you need to disconnect," Jake said urgently. "Your vital signs are failing." "Not yet," Danny said. "There's something else I need to do." Through the ship's long-range sensors, Danny could see the main Devourer fleet approaching Earth. Thousands of ships, each capable of destroying entire cities. Humanity had no defense against such a force, but Danny had an idea. If he could send the disruption signal through the ship's communication array, it might reach Earth before the Devourers did. Human scientists could study the signal and develop defenses. "I'm going to send a message to Earth," Danny said. "The information they need to fight back." "Danny, no," Jake said. "You're already connected too deeply. If you try to do more, you'll die." "Then I'll die protecting everyone I love," Danny replied. "That's what soldiers do." He began broadcasting everything Zephyr knew about the Devourers. Their weaknesses, their technology, their battle tactics. The message contained decades of Nexari military knowledge, compressed into a signal that could cross interstellar space-dot. As the message transmitted, Danny felt his consciousness beginning to fade. The connection was burning out his human brain, but he held on long enough to ensure the entire message was sent. "Message transmitted," he whispered. "Earth will be ready." Then Danny Martinez, the weakest soldier in Alpha Squadron, collapsed. At the computer console, he had saved not just his ship, but possibly all of humanity. And he had done it by embracing the very weakness that others had mocked him for. Danny woke up in a place that wasn't quite real and wasn't quite a dream. He was floating in a space filled with soft blue light, and he could feel Zephyr's presence beside him. But something was different. He wasn't in his physical body anymore. Where are we? Danny asked. Between worlds, Zephyr replied, its voice clear in this strange space. Your body could not handle the deep connection, but your consciousness survived by merging more completely with mine. Danny looked around and saw images of the battle playing out like movies in the air. The Titan was safe, and the remaining Devourer ships were retreating. But through the ship's sensors, he could see the main Devourer fleet still approaching Earth. How long was I unconscious? Danny asked. 3 weeks, Zephyr answered. Your friends have been taking care of your body, but your mind has been here, learning. In this space between life and death, Zephyr had been teaching Danny everything about the coming war. He now understood weapons and tactics that no human had ever imagined. He could see the patterns in Devourer behavior that would let humanity fight back. I need to go back, Danny said. Earth needs to be warmed. You cannot return to your old body, Zephyr explained sadly. The connection burned out too many neural pathways. But there is another way. Zephyr showed Danny images of the Titan's computer systems. They had been permanently changed by his deep connection. Part of his consciousness was now stored in the ship's memory banks. I can exist in the ship's systems, Danny realized. Like a ghost in the machine. More than that, Zephyr said. You can project yourself into any computer system. You can communicate across space instantly. You can be everywhere humanity needs you to be. Danny felt a mix of sadness and excitement. He would never again feel the warmth of sunlight on his skin or taste his favorite food, but he would have power beyond anything a normal human could. Imagine. What about you? Danny asked. Will you stay with me? Always, Zephyr replied. We are one consciousness now. Neither fully human nor fully Nixari, but something new. Danny made his decision. He reached out with his mind and felt the familiar sensation of connecting to the Titan's computer systems. But this time, instead of struggling with the connection, he flowed into it naturally. On the ship's bridge, Captain Harrison and the others watched as the main computer screen flickered to life. Danny's face appeared on the display, but it was slightly translucent and glowed with soft blue light. Hello, everyone, Danny said through the ship's speakers. I'm back. Jake stepped closer to the screen. Danny, is that really you? It's me, Danny confirmed, just in a different form. I know it's strange, but I'm still the same person. What happened to your body? Dr. Park asked. She had been monitoring his vital signs for weeks. My brain couldn't handle the deep connection with the ship's systems, Danny explained. But my consciousness survived by merging completely with Zephyr. Now I exist as living information. Major Wells looked skeptical. How do we know you're not just an alien trick? Danny smiled on the screen. Because I remember everything? I remember. Jake calling me dead weight during training. I remember Ryan refusing to help me when I fell. I remember eating alone in the cafeteria every day. And I remember Lisa rolling her eyes whenever I tried to speak, Danny continued. But I also remember all of you risking your lives to carry me back to the ship after I collapsed. You could have left me behind, but you didn't. Jake looked ashamed. Danny, I'm sorry for the way I treated you. You saved all of us. You don't need to apologize, Danny said. You treated me the way you thought a weak soldier deserved. But it turns out that being weak was exactly what made me strong. Captain Harrison stepped forward. Private Martinez, what's the status of the Devourer fleet? Danny's image flickered as he accessed long-range sensors across multiple star systems. They'll reach Earth in 2 weeks. But the message I sent got through. Human scientists are already working on the defensive technologies I transmitted. Will it be enough? Major Wells asked. Not by itself, Danny admitted. The Devourers are too powerful, but I have a plan. Danny explained his strategy. Using his ability to exist in computer systems, he could coordinate Earth's defenses in ways that would have been impossible before. He could control multiple ships simultaneously, predict enemy movements, and adapt tactics in real time. "But I'll need help," Danny said. "I can't be everywhere at once, even in digital form. I need other humans to work with me." "What kind of humans?" Captain Harrison asked. "The ones nobody else wants," Danny replied. "The soldiers who are too slow, too weak, or too different. The misfits and outcasts. They're the ones with minds flexible enough to connect with Nexari technology." Over the following days, Danny reached out through Earth's communication networks to find compatible humans. He contacted soldiers who had been rejected from elite units, scientists who thought differently than their peers, and engineers whose ideas were considered too strange. Many of them were serving on remote outposts or working in forgotten corners of the military. Like Danny, they had been ignored or dismissed by their superiors. But when Danny tested them, he found that several had the neural patterns needed for limited Nexari bonding. "You're building an army of rejects," Jake observed as he watched Danny. "Coordinate with dozens of volunteers across the galaxy." "The best kind of army," Danny replied. "We don't fight the way others expect us to. That's our advantage." When the Devourer fleet finally reached Earth's solar system, they found something they had never encountered before. Instead of a traditional military defense, they faced a network of connected minds, working in perfect coordination. Danny's consciousness flowed through every defensive system in the solar system. Ships that should have been operated by separate crews moved together like parts of a single organism. Weapons fired in patterns that confused and disrupted the Devourer attack formations. The humans Danny had recruited didn't become full hybrids like him, but they formed limited connections with Nexari refugees who had survived on other worlds. These partnerships gave them enhanced reflexes and tactical awareness, while allowing them to remain fundamentally human. "They're not adapting fast enough," Danny announced as the battle raged around Earth. "The Devourers can't understand our strategy because it's based on cooperation instead of domination." The key moment came when Danny identified the Devourer command ship hidden in the center of their fleet. Instead of attacking it directly, he coordinated a simultaneous strike from 100 different directions. The Devourers couldn't adapt to such a complex, multi-layered assault. When the command ship was destroyed, the rest of the Devourer fleet lost coordination. Without their central intelligence guiding them, the individual ships became confused and vulnerable. Earth's defenders, still working in perfect harmony through Danny's network, systematically destroyed the remaining enemy vessels. After the battle, Danny's image appeared on screens across the planet. He addressed not just the military, but all of humanity. "The threat is over," he announced. "But this is just the beginning. We've learned that our greatest strength isn't our weapons or our ships. It's our ability to work together, to accept those who are different, and to find value in what others call weakness." In the months that followed, Danny became Earth's guardian consciousness. He existed in the planet's computer networks, watching for new threats and helping humanity prepare for whatever might come next. Jake Thompson was promoted to captain and given command of a new type of ship designed around human Nexari cooperation. Ryan Burke and Lisa Adams both volunteered for the Enhanced Connection program. Learning to work with Nexari partners. Dr. Park led research into the bonding process, finding ways to make it safer for future volunteers. Captain Harrison became the head of Earth's new integrated defense network. And in quiet moments, when the ship was running smoothly and no emergencies demanded his attention, Danny would appear on the screens of his old squad mates just to talk. He was no longer the weak soldier they had ignored, but he was still their friend. The boy who had been too small, too slow, and too different had become humanity's greatest protector. He had saved his species not by becoming stronger in the traditional sense, but by embracing the qualities that made him unique. In the end, the weakest soldier had proven that sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe is simply the willingness to care about others, no matter how they treat you in return. Danny Martinez, the ignored misfit, had become a legend. And across the galaxy, other species began to understand that humanity's true strength lay not in their weapons or their ships, but in their incredible ability to find value in the forgotten and power in the overlooked. The war was over, but Danny's watch had just begun. Somewhere in the vast network of human civilization, the consciousness of a small, weak soldier continued to stand guard, protecting the people who had once pushed him aside, and proving every day that being different wasn't a weakness at all.